What if I told you that could NASA be hiding one of the biggest secrets in history? Have you ever stopped to think, why are we always told that Mars is a dry and inhospitable planet, when a wealth of evidence suggests otherwise? Well then, new discoveries could change everything we know about the red planet. But there is something that NASA doesn't seem to want to disclose. In recent years, missions like Curiosity and Perseverance sent images and data that indicate the presence of frozen water and even traces of liquid flows in certain regions of Mars. But there is one detail that no one comments. Some of this information mysteriously disappeared from public reports. Why? What are they trying to hide? If there is water on Mars, this completely changes the game of space exploration. This means that the planet may have supported life in the past, or even still have some kind of hidden biological activity. Now think, if NASA knew this, would it reveal it to the public? Or could this discovery trigger one of the biggest secrets of the century? The truth is that leaked reports, statements from scientists, and mysterious images suggest there is something much bigger at play. And we're not just talking about science, but something that can directly impact the future of humanity. But before we get into the shocking evidence that could change everything we know about Mars, tell me, do you believe that NASA is hiding information from us? Comment your opinion below, because this mystery is just beginning. But before I reveal the evidence that could change everything we know about Mars, I need you to do something very important. The truth only comes to light when more people question and seek answers. If NASA really is hiding something, we can't let this information get lost. We need to keep this debate alive, spread these discoveries, and make sure more people are aware of what's going on behind the scenes in space exploration. Then, if you want to continue discovering the secrets that no one wants you to know, leave a like on this video. This helps this information reach more people. And subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next revelations, because I guarantee what comes next is even more disturbing. Now, get ready. Let's go into detail about the leaked documents, the silent scientists, and the evidence that could confirm that Mars is not what we were told. The truth may be about to be exposed. You'll want to see it through to the end. NASA has already confirmed that Mars is not as dry and barren a planet as we were led to believe for decades. Since the 2000s, several missions sent to the red planet have found irrefutable evidence that water was once present in abundance there. And we are not just talking about geological traces, but about concrete and recent evidence that indicates the presence of liquid water under the Martian surface. But before we get into the more shocking details, it's worth remembering what NASA itself has already publicly admitted. If we go back in time, we can see that the exploration of Mars has always been shrouded in mystery and contradictions. In 2004, the Rover Spirit-E opportunity found clear signs that large amounts of water existed there in the past. Martian rock structures analyzed by these missions showed sedimentary layers that could only have been formed by the action of water. This indicated that, at some point in the planet's history, Mars had rivers, lakes, and even oceans covering its surface. But what happened to that water? Was it completely evaporated? Was it absorbed by the soil? Or does it still exist hidden somewhere that NASA doesn't want to disclose? Advances continued, and in 2015, one of NASA's most important announcements was made. Satellite images captured by the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter have shown evidence of salt water flowing seasonally in certain regions of Mars. This meant that, at certain times of the year, Martian ice melted and formed small streams, proving that liquid water could still be present on Mars today. The news was celebrated, but something strange happened soon after. NASA began to downplay the impact of this discovery, saying that the data could have been misinterpreted and that the so-called flow lines could just be marks caused by sand slides. The question that remains is, why did NASA suddenly backtrack on something so important? If there were liquid water flowing on Mars, It would make room for the existence of microbial life. And maybe something even more surprising that they don't want us to know. Subsequent missions, such as the Curiosity rover, found more evidence that Mars once had ideal conditions for life. The soil analyzed by the robot revealed hydrated minerals, meaning that water was present there for a long period in the past. More recently, the Perseverance mission also made similar discoveries, reinforcing the thesis that Mars may have had not just water, but also a habitable environment. And this is exactly where things start to get even more suspicious. In 2018, a study conducted by Italian scientists detected a possible underground lake on Mars, hidden under layers of ice in the polar region of the planet, using a special radar. From the Mars Express spacecraft, they noticed an anomaly beneath the Martian surface, a region that reflected radio waves in the same way that large bodies of water do on Earth. What does this mean? That there is a huge possibility that there is a reservoir of liquid water on Mars, hidden beneath the ice. The revelation came as a shock, but again, NASA quickly tried to downplay the discovery. Scientists linked to the space agency tried to discredit the study, saying that the signals could just be an illusion created by the equipment. But this explanation did not convince everyone. In the end, if there is liquid water on Mars, why hasn't NASA invested more resources into investigating this discovery? The answer may be linked to the fact that Mars has always been a strategic target for the future of space exploration, and if there is plenty of water there, this completely changes the rules of the game. Private companies, governments, and even billionaires like Elon Musk have ambitious plans to colonize Mars. And whoever masters this information first will have an advantage in the space race. After all, water is not just an indicator of life. It can be used to generate oxygen, fuel, and sustain future human colonies on the planet. Now, think with me. If NASA admitted that Mars has large amounts of liquid water, it would open up a huge debate about the possibility of extraterrestrial life, and even about what may have existed there in the past. Is this information being manipulated so as not to generate panic or uncontrolled speculation? Or is there already something on Mars that NASA just doesn't want us to discover? If there is something wrong with this story, we need to keep looking for answers. And that's why this video is so important. If you've made it this far, are you part of the group of people who want to know the truth about what is happening in space exploration? So, don't forget. If you believe that NASA may be hiding something about Mars, comment here. The truth needs to come to the light. This helps spread this information and gives more people access to this mystery that no one wants to explain. Now get ready, because the next reveal is even more impressive. Let's talk about theories and evidence that Mars may not be as uninhabited as they say. If NASA really found liquid water on Mars, why isn't this information all over the news? There is something as important as the discovery of a resource essential for life. Why are there so many inconsistencies in the reports and so many changes in the official narrative? Here we come to one of the most intriguing points of this story. The theories that NASA may be hiding much more than we are allowed to know. Some independent researchers have raised surprising hypotheses. What if NASA has known for a long time that Mars has liquid water, but was manipulating the release of this information? It wouldn't be the first time that space discoveries have been kept secret for a while before being released to the public in a controlled way. But in this case, the secrecy may have an even more disturbing reason. In 2018, scientific research indicated that a large underground lake could be hidden beneath ice sheets on Mars. And as I mentioned before, this information was quickly downplayed. But there is an even more bizarre detail. As we analyzed satellite images of Mars over the years, we noticed that some regions that previously appeared to contain signs of moisture were later corrected, or simply disappeared from public maps. This has led many experts and theorists to question, could it be that NASA is editing the images before releasing them to the public? This would not be an isolated case. NASA's image manipulation has been raised on other occasions, mainly in photos of the Moon and even in certain areas of Earth monitored by satellites. But in the case of Mars, this takes on a new dimension. If there is water, there is the possibility of life. And if there is life, why would it be kept secret? This question opens up a range of frightening possibilities. What if NASA already knows that Mars has microbial life forms, or even something more complex, and decided to hide this information to avoid panic or uncontrolled speculation? Think about the impact a discovery like this would have on society. Religions would be questioned, science would need to rewrite part of its history, and space exploration would take on an even more strategic character. After all, we wouldn't just be exploring a desert planet, we would be invading a territory that may already have inhabitants. This would explain why NASA always maintains tight control over information released to the public. Few images arrive in real time. Many files go through a filter before being released, and even the data collected by rovers and probes undergo a rigorous internal analysis process before becoming public. But what prevents some of this data from simply disappearing? Who really decides what we can and cannot know? A theory that has gained traction in recent years suggests that Mars once had an advanced civilization in the past, and evidence of this fact has been erased from history. There is intriguing evidence that unusual structures photographed on the surface of Mars could be ruins of something much older than we imagine. And if water still exists underground, that could mean that was this civilization not completely extinct, but rather forced to adapt to new conditions. An interesting point is that the CIA itself has carried out remote viewing experiments, where trained individuals have claimed to have seen traces of ancient civilizations on Mars. These documents were declassified a few years ago, but little attention has been paid to what they actually reveal. If Mars had intelligent life in the past, water may have been an essential factor in its survival, and may still be, and that's where things get even stranger. Why do NASA missions avoid exploring certain areas of Mars? Many regions that have strong evidence of geological activity or signs of possible liquid water are not directly investigated. Why does this happen? Is it just a question of logistics and equipment limitations, or is there a strategic decision to prevent certain discoveries from coming to light? We know that Mars is one of the most studied planets in the solar system. Billions of dollars are invested in missions to understand its composition and past. But the feeling that remains is that we are only informed about what they want us to know. Some anomalies have already been captured by probes and satellites, and in many cases, this information simply disappears from official reports. Another detail that reinforces this suspicion is the involvement of large private companies in space exploration. Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and other powerful technology figures are running a silent race to put humans on Mars. But what would be the real reason for this interest? If NASA already knows that there is water on Mars, perhaps these billionaires do too, and are preparing their own missions to be the first to have access to these resources. In the end, water on Mars doesn't just mean the possibility of life. It represents power and dominance over space exploration. With water, it is possible to generate oxygen, create fuel for spacecraft, and establish permanent bases on the planet. Whoever controls this water will control the future of humanity outside of Earth. But now, I want to know, do you believe that? NASA is really hiding the truth about Mars. Do you think that is there something much bigger behind this silence? Something that could completely change our understanding of space exploration? Comment below. NASA doesn't say everything. To strengthen this investigation and help spread this questioning, and get ready, because in the next part of this video, we're going to talk about the most shocking evidence that could prove that NASA already knows much more than it is telling us, and may have even found something alive on Mars. If there is something that NASA and other space agencies know about Mars, but don't reveal it to the public, where would the evidence be? Are we being manipulated into only believing what they want us to know? The signs that there is something much bigger behind the exploration of Mars are increasingly evident. And the question is, why so much resistance to admitting the truth? One of the most emblematic cases happened in 2018, when a group of Italian scientists made a stunning discovery. Using probe data Mars Express, they identified an anomaly beneath the south polar cap of Mars. The signs were clear. An underground lake more than 20 kilometers long could be hidden beneath layers of Martian ice. If confirmed, this would be one of the greatest discoveries in the history of astronomy. But something strange happened soon after this news broke. Quickly, a group of scientists linked to NASA began to refute the discovery, suggesting that the data could be wrong, that the reflection captured could simply be a different type of rock, or an effect of the satellite's own instruments. The study, which should have stimulated new investigations, ended up being hushed up and fell into oblivion. But this case was not the only one. NASA missions have already collected data indicating the presence of water on Mars. But this data was mysteriously deleted or forgotten in the agency's internal files. In some situations, scientists who have attempted to further these investigations reported difficulties in obtaining complete information. There are also records that certain data collected by the Curiosity rover simply disappeared from NASA's database, without any official explanation. Another curious detail is the fact that NASA avoids exploring certain regions of Mars, even when there is strong evidence that these areas may contain something of great scientific interest. If the objective of the missions is to collect as much information about the planet, why ignore regions that clearly show unusual signals? Why are so many images released to the public of desert areas without any sign of recent geological activity? While we know that there are highly suspicious craters and rock formations that are never closely investigated, many researchers believe that there is a clear pattern in how NASA handles sensitive information about Mars. What reaches the public is only a filtered version of reality, carefully edited so as not to raise unwanted questions. If there's something there that can't be disclosed, what would it be? We cannot forget that the history of space exploration itself has shown us that documents can be manipulated and information can be hidden when it suits. During the Cold War, the space race between the United States and the Soviet Union resulted in several secret operations. Many of them only became public decades later when documents were declassified. The same may be happening now. But this time, what is at stake is not just a political competition, but the future of human exploration beyond Earth. Furthermore, there is another important issue: the images released from the surface of Mars. Some analyses carried out by experts indicate that certain official photos appear to have been altered before being released to the public. Colors may have been modified, contrasts may have been adjusted, and in some cases, details have been reported to have been removed. This may sound like a conspiracy theory, but think about it. If NASA has already admitted that it edits images for better viewing, how do you know if something important is not being purposely hidden? The files released by the CIA itself in recent years show that the United States government has a history of withholding space-related information. Among these documents, there are reports of studies involving remote views of Mars, where supposed government-trained psychics claim to have seen ancient cities and artificial structures on the red planet, although many discredit these experiences. The fact that these surveys were conducted secretly demonstrates that there is much more going on behind the scenes than we are told. What if Mars once had a civilization? What if this civilization knew what was about to happen and found a way to hide, perhaps underground on the planet? It is no coincidence that so many satellite images captured over the years show strange, geometric formations and shadows that defy conventional scientific explanation. It's NASA really discovered something extraordinary on Mars. Why not tell the truth? The answer may be linked to global control over information. Space exploration not only involves science, but also economic and political interests. If it were confirmed that Mars has liquid water and the potential to sustain life, the planet would no longer be just an object of study and would become a strategic resource, contested by nations and private companies. This would explain the growing influence of billionaires like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos in the race to Mars, while NASA maintains a cautious tone in its statements. Musk, for example, talks openly about colonizing Mars and making humanity a multiplanetary species. But the question remains, what does he know that we don't? Why so much interest in Mars now? Perhaps the answer lies in the fact that NASA has long known that Mars is not just a barren, lifeless desert. There's something there that is being studied and monitored but cannot be revealed to the public for now. The question is, how much longer can they hide this truth? Now, I want to know your opinion. Do you believe that has NASA already found liquid water on Mars and hides this information from the public? Do you think that is there something even bigger being kept secret, something that could completely change what we know about life beyond Earth? Comment below, NASA hides the truth, to show that you are also aware of this information and want to know the truth about Mars. And hold on tight, because what comes next will leave you even more perplexed. Let's talk about silenced scientists, mysterious missions, and signs that Mars may have already been inhabited and may not yet be completely deserted. If NASA has already found liquid water on Mars and hides this information, what does this really mean for humanity? If we confirm that there is abundant water on the red planet, space exploration changes completely, and everything we know about the history of our solar system may be about to be rewritten. This is not just a scientific question, but a revelation that could impact the entire human civilization. Think about what this represents. If Mars has water, then the idea that it has always been a barren, cold, lifeless desert may be a completely distorted narrative. Water is the key to life as we know it, and where there is water, there is at least the possibility of living organisms, even if they are just underground microbial life forms. But what if this discovery is even more impressive? What if Mars is not just a planet that once had life, but a planet that can still harbor life now? The possibility of life on Mars changes everything we believe about our position in the universe. We have always been told that Earth is a rare case, a unique and privileged planet in the cosmos. But if there is water and living organisms on Mars, this means that life can be much more common than we imagined. And if that's true, how many other planets might be teeming with life, just waiting to be discovered? And the issue doesn't stop there. The discovery of liquid water on Mars means the planet could be colonized more quickly than anyone imagined. Space agencies and private companies that are investing billions in Mars exploration, like Elon Musk's SpaceX, may be much more advanced than we are led to believe. If there is water, there is a fundamental resource for human survival, which can be transformed into oxygen, cultivated to produce food, and even used as a source of fuel for spacecraft. This makes the colonization of Mars not just a distant dream, but a reality that could be much closer than we imagine. But if all this is true, why isn't this information being communicated more clearly? And most importantly, who will decide what will be done with Mars? If the planet has valuable resources such as water, rare minerals, and perhaps even unknown life forms, who will have the right to exploit them? Would it just be governments? Private companies like SpaceX? Or are we facing a silent race for space domination, where the truth will only be revealed when it is convenient for those who hold power? This would not be the first time that information has been hidden from the public in the name of strategic interests. The space race between the USA and the Soviet Union during the Cold War already showed us that scientific discoveries can be used as a currency of power and domination. If NASA and other institutions really know more than they let on, That means humanity's future beyond Earth may already be being decided behind the scenes, away from the public eye. And there is another detail that few talk about. If Mars once had an ecosystem in the past and was able to support oceans and rivers, what happened to make it the desert we see today? Would it be a natural process? Or was there something more? There are some theories that suggest that Mars may have suffered some catastrophic event, perhaps a war, an extreme weather disaster, or even a drastic change in its magnetic field. But if that happened, what does this teach us about our own planet? Could Earth follow the same path? This is why understanding Mars is essential for our future. If we discover that Mars once had life and lost everything, this could serve as a warning to humanity about the risks of neglecting our own planet. But if we discover that Mars still has life, even if microscopic, this could take us to an unprecedented scientific leap. If we go further and imagine that there is some form of intelligence surviving on Mars, something that has never been officially mentioned, but which many believe to be possible, that completely rewrites the history of space exploration. What if NASA and other organizations already know this and don't tell us? Why? The fear of a social collapse. The attempt to maintain control over the space exploration narrative. The colonization of Mars will not be a peaceful event. If humanity truly begins to settle on the red planet, this will be the biggest change in modern history, and whoever controls Mars will control the future of the human species outside of Earth. If there is water, there are abundant natural resources, and if there is some form of life there, the question will no longer be if we will colonize Mars, but rather who will have the right to explore this new world and who will be left out. And what's even scarier, if great powers already know this, perhaps the real space race is not to get there first, but rather to control information and decide how and when this truth will be revealed to the public. If there is life on Mars, or if there ever was, and NASA is aware of it, what else could be being hidden? Now I want to know your opinion. Do you think the discovery of water on Mars is being manipulated to hide something even bigger? Do you believe that does NASA already know about the existence of life on Mars and simply hasn't revealed it yet? If you also want the truth, comment here. The truth about Mars needs to be revealed. And get ready, because in the next part of this video, we're going to dive even deeper. If NASA hides information about Mars, what other missions could have uncovered even more disturbing secrets? The answer may be much more shocking than you imagine. If NASA has already found liquid water on Mars, why isn't this information being communicated clearly and directly? Why is every discovery made about the red planet always accompanied by vague explanations, scientific revisions, and often a sudden retreat on the part of the responsible bodies? If there's anything history has taught us, it's that when information extremely relevant to humanity is hidden, there are much bigger interests behind it. The issue here is not just scientific. We are talking about power, dominance, and, possibly, something much deeper than we can imagine. One of the most plausible explanations for this secrecy involves the geopolitics of space. The United States government has a history of hiding strategic information under the justification of national security. This has already happened in several areas of science, and it would be no different when we talk about space exploration. Think about it. If NASA publicly admitted that Mars has abundant water and the potential to support life, this information would become of global interest. And countries like Russia and China would rush to claim their space in this interplanetary race. We know there's a new space race going on behind the scenes, and this time it's not just about getting to the Moon or Mars first. It's about who will have control over those planets' resources. If space exploration follows the same pattern as terrestrial exploration, there will not be room for everyone, and only a small part of the global elite will be able to decide what will be done with this new frontier. And that brings us to the second possibility, which is even more intriguing. Is there something on Mars we can't know? This theory suggests that NASA may be hiding more than just the existence of water. What if there is evidence of extraterrestrial life, even microbial life, and this is being kept secret to avoid panic or scientific and religious questions? This possibility is extremely real, because if a single living organism is found outside of Earth, every conception we have about our existence will be questioned. The impact would be gigantic, from philosophical questions to the dominance that certain institutions have over humanity. And that's where we enter the field of information control. If NASA has already found traces of life on Mars, who would guarantee that this information would reach the public without going through a rigorous filter? The truth is that space exploration has always been surrounded by mysteries and truncated information. Reports from former NASA employees suggest that there are internal protocols that prevent the release of certain discoveries before they go through an approval process, which can include government agencies and even the private sector. This means that if something extremely revealing is found on Mars, such as fossils, living microorganisms, or even structures that indicate past biological activity, that information will not simply be released at a press conference. Instead, it will undergo strict control, being released to the public only when it is convenient for those who hold the power of space exploration. And this question leads us to another, even more disturbing possibility. What if the elite are already planning to colonize Mars and we're not on the list? Think about it. While we ordinary citizens are still trying to understand whether Mars is habitable or not, private companies like Elon Musk's SpaceX and Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin are already designing technologies to take humans to the red planet. But who will really have access to this new frontier? If Mars has water, valuable natural resources, and the potential to become a new home for humanity, who will make the decisions about who can live there and who will be stuck on Earth? We know there is a silent movement among the world's richest to invest in off-planet survival technologies. Billionaires are buying land in isolated regions, building underground bunkers, and investing heavily in the space race. Could it be that Mars is already part of this secret plan, and only the most privileged will have the right to start this new civilization? This theory is not absurd if we consider how humanity has always approached the exploration of new lands throughout history. When Europeans colonized the Americas, the local population had no choice. The powerful were always the first to secure their space and exploit resources before the common population knew what was really happening. Now imagine this on an interplanetary scale. If Mars is truly viable for human survival, the elite may be securing their place first, even before the majority of the world's population understands the true potential of this planet. And there is one more point worth considering. If NASA and other space agencies know more than they let on, could this race to Mars be happening? Because they already know that the Earth may not be sustainable much longer. Our planet is experiencing intense climate change. The depletion of natural resources is increasingly evident, and environmental crises emerge every year. It may be that the elite have already accepted that the Earth will not be habitable forever, and if that is the case, they need to ensure a Plano B before chaos ensues. And do you think all of humanity will have access to this new home? Or will it be a new natural selection based on status, power, and wealth? The fact is that regardless of the reason, there is a great interest in keeping this information away from the public. The less we know about Mars and its real potential, we question less and demand less that decisions are made transparently. The truth may be hidden behind government contracts, billionaire-funded space missions, and a global system that prioritizes profit and power over truth and science. But what's really going on behind the scenes? What do NASA, space agencies, and big business know about Mars that we don't? Now, I want to know your opinion. Do you believe that NASA hides information about Mars for political or economic interests, or because there is something that simply can we not know? If you also want the truth, comment NASA doesn't say everything, to show that you are attentive to these mysteries and do not accept being deceived. And hold on tight, because the next section will reveal even more secrets. What if NASA has known this information for much longer than we realize? There are secret missions, leaked documents, and evidence that Mars may have been explored much earlier than we have been told. What comes next could completely change your outlook on space exploration. What if I told you that the most shocking evidence about Mars didn't come from NASA, but from independent scientists and unexpected leaks that challenge everything we know about the red planet? For years, we were led to believe that Mars was always an arid, cold, and lifeless desert. But each new discovery seems to point to a much more complex past, and perhaps much more similar to Earth than we imagine. Several researchers suggest that Mars once had an ecosystem similar to that of Earth, with oceans, lakes, rivers, and a dense atmosphere that allowed life to exist on its surface. But if that's true, what happened to Mars to make it this inhospitable, seemingly dead world? Something devastating happened. Something that may have completely destroyed its biosphere. One of the greatest mysteries of Mars is the loss of its atmosphere, something that cannot be explained by natural factors alone. Evidence indicates that Mars at once had a strong magnetic field like Earth's, which allowed it to maintain a dense atmosphere and a stable climate. However, something happened that deactivated this magnetic field, allowing solar winds to slowly strip away the planet's atmosphere. And here's the scariest question. Was this collapse natural, or was it caused by something much bigger? Some theories suggest that Mars may have been the victim of a catastrophic event, a cosmic explosion, a massive impact, or even an interplanetary war. Does it seem absurd? Then consider this. In 2014, a study revealed that certain regions of Mars contain radioactive isotopes at extremely high levels, similar to those found in nuclear testing areas on Earth. These elements should not be there, naturally, unless some massive explosion has occurred at some point in Martian history. Now, stop and think. If the destruction of Mars was not just a natural phenomenon, but rather the result of an extreme event, this means that your civilization, if it existed, may have been extinguished by unknown forces. And if Mars was, at some point, an inhabited planet, what happened to its population? Did some of its inhabitants manage to escape? Does Mars still hold ruins of a lost civilization buried beneath its red dust? And here comes an even more intriguing detail. Did you know that are there NASA records of images of anomalous structures on the surface of Mars? Several photos captured by satellites showed geometric formations, inexplicable alignments, and even what appear to be ruins of something built by intelligent hands. But whenever these images are discussed, scientists are quick to dismiss them as optical illusions or curious natural formations. But if there's anything the history of space exploration has taught us, it's that every time a discovery is quickly dismissed without in-depth investigation, we must question why. If NASA really found traces of something unusual on Mars, why? Would it avoid exploring these regions? Why do so many missions focus on areas with no signs of relevant geological activity, while other regions full of anomalies simply are not investigated? Now think about this. Why are companies like SpaceX so obsessed with colonizing Mars as quickly as possible? Elon Musk has already made it clear that his goal is to establish a permanent base on the red planet. But does this race have only scientific and economic reasons? Or is there something they already know? Something they can't be released to the public until the elite are ready to exploit it first? What if Mars it's not a dead planet, but rather a world where does something still survive hidden underground? Do you think NASA and other space agencies would tell us if they found signs of an alien life form living underground on Mars? Or would this information be considered an absolute secret, something that cannot be revealed in any way to the public? Now, I want to know your opinion. Do you believe that Mars once had a civilization in the past? Do you think that are the anomalies, discovered on the surface, just natural formations? Or could they be the remains of something much older? If you also want answers, comment "The truth is hidden on Mars." Now I want to know, is NASA really hiding the truth about Mars? After everything we've discussed, the evidence that has been mysteriously ignored, the missions that seem to avoid certain areas, and the anomalies that are never convincingly explained, it's hard to believe that we are receiving all the information transparently. If Mars ever had abundant water, a dense atmosphere, and possibly even life forms. So it doesn't make sense that scientists are treating this issue so carefully. Something is being hidden. It may be that the global elite already has a plan to colonize Mars before disclosing what is really there. It may be that something has already been found and is being studied without the population being aware of it. Or it may be that we are not welcome there. What if NASA has known for years that Mars isn't completely dead? What if some type of life form, microbial, or something even more complex had already been identified on a previous mission? Do you really believe that? This information would be released openly to the public without going through the scrutiny of government and corporate interests. If we think about the history of space exploration and the countless missions that have been classified, postponed, or simply shelved without explanation, it is clear that what we are told is only a fraction of the truth. But now, I want to know your opinion. Do you think NASA is hiding something about Mars? Do you believe that was Mars once habitable, and this information is being kept from the public? If you've made it this far, you're part of the group of people who don't just accept what they say, who question, who want answers. Then leave your comment below with the phrase, "The truth about Mars needs to be revealed," to show that you too want to know what's really going on behind the scenes of space exploration. If you've come this far, it's because you are one of the few people who actually question and want to know the truth about what NASA might be hiding. This means you are part of the group that does not accept shallow explanations, seeks evidence, and knows that what we are told is just the tip of the iceberg. So, this video made you reflect. If any part of it impacted you or left you with that nagging doubt in your mind, already subscribe to the channel right now. Here, we continue to investigate the mysteries of space, revealing hidden secrets and analyzing the information they don't want you to find out. Don't let this truth be lost. Turn on notifications so you don't miss anything, because the next video could be even more revealing. Now that we've seen what might be hidden on Mars, get ready for something even stranger. Several space probes have simply disappeared without explanation. What did they find before losing contact? Common failures, or something that should never have been discovered. Leaked records indicate that some of these missions may have picked up unexplained signals before the disappearance. What didn't NASA reveal? I'll wait for you.